Hey guys, David Pingree here along with Sean Klinger from Vital MX, and we're here today with another race shop build. It's a really cool Honda CRF250. This is actually going to be Sean's bike to ride through the rest of the year, so it was kind of his baby. Talk us through what you did to this thing and kind of what you wanted to get out of it.
Yeah, so after the 250F shootout, this was actually my favorite bike. So we went ahead and did some work with both the suspension, the engine. So starting at the front, we got the ODI CFT bars. It's the new Carmichael bend. And then we have the ride engineering triple clamps on there. To make the bike look as sweet as it does is DeCal Works full custom kit, as well as Polysport plastics and little graphics protectors on there. We also have the Dirt Tricks rear sprocket, DID chain, and Rekluse clutch. Some protection from Pro Carbon for the skid plate and the front rotor and this gas tank cover here. Another thing that is on this bike is the Boysen supercooler, and this was suggested by the guys at XPR. They had good experience with the Boysen supercooler in the past, and specifically for the Honda CRF250R.
Yeah, the thing came out looking great. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a sparkle to these graphics, which is pretty cool. It's like a blue pearl or something that's in it. It's pretty neat. And I think it came out looking great. It's got a lot of cool parts, some stuff we've never really been able to use.
Getting into the engine, I talked to Chad at XPR, and he said that he had some ideas of what he wanted to do, but he also suggested to grab the Acro exhaust for this. So that's, you don't see that very often on a Honda 250, so that's what we got. And so he kind of worked around that for the changes he did to the engine. We'll have him explain a little more detail of what he did there. I wanted to see what XPR could do with the 250 because I've seen some other builds with it. Also, he has great success with the Smart Top Honda team. So tell us a little bit about what you did to this engine and kind of your experience with Acro and Rekluse and how that all fits together.
Yeah, so we wanted to try to keep this build simple and within a budget. Some of the things we did: ported head, one of our custom pistons. We have a manual cam chain tensioner that we used. A spark plug hold downer for the spark plug cap. We use stock cams, Vortex ECU, acropotic pipe, Rekluse clutch, and that's really it. And we wanted to see what we could do with this package and make it the best on a budget. I think the big difference with this build is that I've never done this exhaust system on a 250. I have on the 450, and I really like it on the 450, the way it delivers the power. I think that was probably one of the things that surprised me the most. It really just worked everywhere.
So overall, would this be kind of a mid-budget or lower budget? Like where does this slot in for the type of rider coming in? Yeah,
I would say this is more of a mid-budget because we didn't go into the bottom end. We didn't do anything in the bottom end. It was all top. There's things on here that you could do, like ECU and a custom map, like what we do. We do a lot with mapping. It makes a big difference with this bike.
Right.
Or you could just do like a Rekluse clutch. With this bike, it makes a massive difference. Really helps it.
And then also we used MR Pro 6 from VP, but like we were talking about earlier, this whole package would still run really well with like T4.
Correct. Yeah, we wanted to make it so you could run all types of fuel. Okay. So, you can run pump, T4, Pro 6.
Yeah, it's good to know that, pretty much any other VP gas or pump gas could work with something with the engine mods. You didn't go too crazy. And then as far as like durability, I mean, that's also something people worry about when, they start modding stuff. So with this build and using like stock cams and everything, that's where that is headed.
It really depends on, the caliber of rider. Like a pro level rider would be anywhere between 15 and 20 hours with this. Maybe a vet rider, 30 to 40 hours. It just depends on the riding style for sure.
Right.
Okay, so we got some time on this machine, both of us. And while the suspension wasn't set up for me, I still wanted to get a feel for the changes that the guys at XPR made, some of the different chassis things, and some of the other parts we have on here. And so one thing that I've noticed over the years of testing different engines and as four-strokes have sort of evolved is that we all tend to like the motor that kind of has a hit. you know. I think even in two-stroke days, you go back and if you're testing something and it's got like a quick burst of power, you're like, ooh, I like that. That thing's fast. But that doesn't always equate to good lap times, to consistency, or to reduced mistakes. What I noticed about this bike today, that was kind of a long way to get to where I'm going, is that the delivery of this motor, the power is very, very linear and very smooth. So it was a little bit deceiving when I first went out. I thought, oh, it's a little soft on the bottom. But then I found there's a big triple out of a turn down here, and there's a couple of sections where I'm rolling third gear and it's pulling it just fine. And I'm like, well, if it was down on power, it wouldn't be pulling this. I wouldn't be able to jump this thing. So it's there, it just doesn't have any kind of hit. And so I was talking with Chad a little bit between motos, and I had ridden the Smart Tops Honda last year, and yeah, the 450, their race bike, and I was blown away with how good that bike was. So this feels a lot like the delivery of that bike, just very, very smooth and very rideable, and it encourages you and inspires confidence to push it harder, and I really, really like that. So I told him I really was a fan of this motor. I did want to see if we could get a little bit quicker acceleration, so keeping the same curve, but just maybe ramping up a little bit sooner. We just did some work on mapping, a couple of different maps he had, and then we went in internally and he changed some jetting, made it a little bit leaner, because we are up at about 4,500 feet-ish here at Kaweah Creek. And immediately I got back what I was looking for. Just a little bit quicker pickup, but the same smooth delivery, and I loved it. It is a pretty quiet bike. I found this exhaust to be really quiet. And again, I think that can be deceiving. You have a bike that's just really loud versus one that's quiet. Even if the horsepower is the same, you'll say the loud one's faster. So again, it was a little deceiving that way at first, but I found I could turn laps on this thing. I wasn't making a lot of mistakes. The power is very tractable. So even though the suspension wasn't set up perfectly for me, it's kind of set up for him, I found it working pretty damn well. A couple of other things I want to talk about. I love the ODI grips and bars. This is a really comfortable bar. If you haven't checked these guys out, stoked on it. I prefer the glue-on grips, but the lock-on stuff's great too. ODI just makes rad stuff. I'm super stoked on all their stuff. I love the tire combination. This is again what I go to, the MX33 in the rear, 53 in the front. Really stoked with the Rekluse clutch, always have been. Whether you're doing the manual or the auto, they make amazing products, and this thing is perfect. But I do want to mention the triple clamps and the link arm. Ride Engineering does a really good job in going out, doing their testing, figuring out what each model does well and what it does poorly, and trying to address that. With the link arm, you know, the length of it, if you make it a little longer, the bike will squat a little bit more in the rear, help you kind of stay planted, coming into turns, track a little better coming out of turns. And the clamps, obviously offset and all that, you can change the way this thing will turn, whether the stability in a straight line. And they've done a really good job with Honda and putting together the right numbers to make this thing handle. Like I said, the suspension's not even set up for me, and I thought it handled great. This thing would turn like it's on rails, and I could really charge and feel pretty comfortable on suspension that wasn't even set up for me. So kudos to the guys at Ride. They do an awesome job, and stoked to have them on this build. And I want to make one other mention. Not only are we using VP race fuel, but also the Stay Frosty coolant, brake fluid. They make a full line of contact cleaner, chain lubes, you name it. Check out all of VP Racing's lubricants. Those guys are making rad stuff now too. I love the way this engine worked, the way that it encouraged me to push, but also helped me to be smooth and efficient and make few mistakes.
Yeah, and I would second everything that Ping said about the motor for sure. It's deceivingly fast. I mean, and it's also something that's extremely comfortable to ride. Like, I feel like I can ride it really aggressive for a long period of time. Me and Chad were talking a little bit about some bikes might have more of a hit. You can ride fast for like 3 laps, and then you're kind of worn out. This, I feel like all day long. I could ride it, hit great laps, great lines where I want to ride it. And going to the suspension, yeah, I loved it. But I feel like what Factory Connection did, they stiffened it up a little bit for my weight. It absorbed it, super comfortable, and it didn't, you know, buck or do anything weird or bounce weird. So I'm stoked with this bike. I do not want to give it back to anyone, and I want to just keep riding it.
Well, listen, thank you so much to all these companies involved. XPR did an awesome job on the motor. That was really the talking point for us. and we're not disappointed at all. No holes or dips in this power, and really, for if you look at what it costs to go in and do cams, valves, the whole thing, it's a very, very affordable cost, and a really good option for durability. Again, when you're keeping some of that stock stuff in there, your service intervals are a little bit longer. So thanks to all these companies involved. Thanks for letting me have a ride on your bike.
Absolutely.
And thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on the next Race Shop Build.
Thank you very much.